Coming to you straight from the Rio Grande and beyond. Broadcasting to the four corners of the globe. So grab your seat, your coffee, or your sundowner.
Okay, everybody, here we go.
On point, as always. This is Gloves Off. Gloves Off.
Back action, Gloves Off. I'm Paul Buitrón. I'm here with a dear friend from Australia, Paolo Cariello, and we're talking about security work. We're talking about not only in clubs, we're talking about executive protection and all that good stuff and how he got involved with it. How we doing? So how's Australia compared to Texas?
I'd rather be in Texas. I heard the steaks are really good there. Like we just got out of the very long lockdown, so I'm in Fortress Australia in cell block F. We just got released. I was expected to come out like in better shape, but I still managed to work out at home. Hopefully things will slowly start improving. But I heard, how's Texas going?
Texas, the governor over here kind of opened everything up, but there was a lot of restrictions. You can only work at 25%, and then at 50%, and 75%, then on up. Right now, everything's kind of back to normal. But people are, how could it? 2 months ago, you saw the fear. Right now, you're not seeing the fear anymore.
Yeah,
and so it just depends. It just depends what's going on. There's a lot of small businesses over here that just closed. They're not going to open up again. They just no longer in business, and that's what happened. That's what happened to great many people. A lot of restaurants closed. A lot of bars are not opening up again. A lot of martial arts schools won't come back, and throughout Texas. But I think people now are at least trying to. How can I put it? Zoom and stuff like this was not around 2-3 years ago, and if it was very few people use it. Not everybody uses it, So it's helped us touch base in that forefront. So there's new technology, if I want to put it that way, that is being used more in a day-to-day basis, which is pretty good, I guess.
Yeah, like 80% of our small businesses have gone and forget about it, never coming back. Our security industry at the moment is suffering from a lack of staff. Like a lot of people didn't want to get vaccinated, or just they went to other states, because a lot of people weren't working, weren't being paid, so they just moved to different states where they could keep working. So now, it's impossible to get someone to come in, and the guys that do come in, they shouldn't be in the industry. Like some guards just think your job, like for example, at the moment I've gone from the nightclubs to bodyguarding, back into the nightclubs, and now I'm in the high-end fashion stores, which people just think is just you staying around looking pretty, which is you don't. Working in a high-end fashion store, you've got lots of people who try to steal, and you've got to keep an eye where everything is, and it's also all about customer service. You can't just be a thug in a suit. You've got to, and the thing is, any type of security, if anyone thinks that being security is being a thug in a suit, they haven't got a clue. So a good security guy is good at bouncing, bodyguard work, they've got to be educated, articulate. You've got to be able to de-escalate. You do have the fighting skills behind it, and because that also gives you the confidence and the ability, but you've got to be articulate. You've got to be able to have a conversation with everyone, from the junkie on the street to some high-end person, some professor or some doctor who wants to talk down to you, but then you talk on the same level with them, and all of a sudden they go like, oh, you're honest, you look like a knuckle-dragging troglodyte, but you don't happen to speak like someone who's remotely human. It's
right.
Vocabulary and knowledge is pretty big. Like a lot of the really good guards and bouncers that I know are actually pretty articulate.
Yep, you're absolutely correct. You know, a lot of people think that you go into the martial arts or they're going to go to a kick punch club and all of a sudden come out and become a bodyguard of some sort. It doesn't happen that
no,
way. You know, schools, there's schools that have been around for a long time that teach you that way. How did you get involved into it, into that life?
pure luck, really. Actually, I started in bouncing when I was 18, and the first venue I went to was Blue BB King was playing. Supposed to be 14 security guards, and I was the only one that showed up. Like the only brief I was given was like because the venue was called the Central Club. It had 3 levels, so the ground level was a blues night. And blues is not that soft, gentle thing you see in the movies. All the guys that went to blues night were reasonably like rough and tough sort of guys. You had a grunge night in the middle section, and I don't even know what the hell was upstairs, but it was not good. And by the end of my first night, I had 100 fights. And it was not like now. Like this was, I was 18, like centuries ago. It feels like now. The rules were different. There it was like you asked someone to leave, they didn't leave, they threw it, they swung at you, you swung back, you dragged them out. Like the only brief I was given was bring 10 t-shirts. I went home with one. Um, it also really got you over the fear of actually being in a fight. Like you actually knew what a fight was. Like a lot of people who train in martial arts, and look, I've trained since I was 10. And there are some people who, look, they're highly skilled, but there's part of them, they've never been in a fight. The instructor might not have ever been in a fight. So they're not actually sure if any of the stuff actually works. And then you have like some of the stuff that you have are what I call dojo techniques. They only work in a dojo because someone has asked the question, what if someone does this? And the instructor has been, hasn't wanted to say like, no one ever does that. You have that, as Mark McYoung calls, the 27 ninjas and an Uzi and an alley, right? You have those sorts of techniques, like they don't happen. It's like, for example, like, the bear hug. I've seen people with 1,000 ways to get out of a bear hug, but the reality is the only person who's ever going to put you in a bear hug is going to be a cop or a security guard. So if someone puts you in a bear hug, 1, they're not trying to hurt you. 2, you've done the wrong thing at some point. And obviously not a bad enough wrong thing to get beaten up. So like it's not really something you need to learn. And even like you got your choke holds and like where someone grabs someone by the throat. And the reality is it's very rare. I'm not saying someone doesn't try to strangle people, but it's not really the go-to move. It's the go-to move in the movies, but in reality, I think probably in since I've started security, I've seen one person try to do it. Like number one, you really shouldn't be letting someone. If someone's being that aggressive, you shouldn't be letting that person that close enough to grab you by the collar.
Absolutely,
And like I
absolutely.
know some martial arts guys, and they got like 50 moves. They got 50 different defenses on how to get rid of. I'm like going, one, your first defense was like you really should not have been that close. Like that's
You're
one of the things I
absolutely
also when I teach someone, especially in the security industry, I always tell people someone's being aggressive with you. And the thing is, in security, we cannot perform the same amount of preclusion that your average citizen can. We can't leave the venue because it's our job to be there. So number one, I'm trying to de-escalate, but I'm also making distance. So I try to make 3 steps. I take 1 step as an angle, I do a wedge. It's also like, one, it's a good psychological tactic because it's not what the other person's expecting. The other person's expecting you to gear up for a fight, or they're expecting you to fluff up and look bigger. But when you're still being firm and you make yourself smaller, their subconscious doesn't know what you are. It starts immediately fearing. There's a bit of fear there because you're not doing what they expect. Then you take 2 more steps back. Later on, when you're talking to the police, and you will be talking to the police, you're honestly telling the police, look, I was trying to de-escalate. I took 3 steps backwards. That means that when it actually got physical, the other guy had to take 3 aggressive steps to get to you.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
the self-defense technique, for like someone's already grabbed you on the throat, really, you messed up at a few points. You should have this. Of course, you can't always be, having this huge amount of distance. We're human beings. We interact. But like that tough guy thing, you've probably seen it. The guy comes really close, forehead to forehead. Well, there's usually a tough guy who doesn't know what he's doing. And if he does know what he's doing, he's probably getting ready to deploy a weapon. And you really should have been making a good gap between you and the other dude.
Absolutely. What you're saying is points of reality that only people that have been around those situations can actually see. And you're correct about the martial arts.
Yeah.
There's a lot of martial art instructors out there that have never been in a fight, and their instructors were never in a fight, and they've never been tested. I mean, they've gone to tournaments and such, but you have to be tested. You have to have grown up tested. I'm not trying to say that you have to go out there and beat up everybody, but
yeah, of course not.
But what I'm saying is there's some vocations like being bouncing and executive protection, so on and so forth, that it teaches you, kind of puts everything together once it if you've come up in those fighting elements, it reminds me of everything that you're telling me. It reminds me of what was going on. I remember when I was younger, we all bounced. We had that security act, also did executive protection. And I remember the owner of the nightclub comes up and he says that he had a big, I'm a short man, I'm 5'8", and everybody else was much, much bigger. And he goes, Paul, I don't want you being in the front, because I know you're going to go in there and you're going to go in there to fight. Because I need you to clean up what's behind you when everybody else is moving out. And I want you to kind of situate everybody up. I said, okay, why? I asked him why. And he goes, because this is a nightclub. People are out here to have fun. They're not out here to beat up each other. Because if they start beating up each other, nobody's going to be coming back here. You don't want somebody that
exactly
fight all the time. I go, that's why the big guys are out there to intimidate and to carry people out. You kind of control the situation from the back and get everybody back into the peaceful state. And I said, okay, and I understood where he was coming from, because the trigger happy, the gung ho, the person that wants to fight, these vocations are not for them.
Yeah, exactly. You've got, as I said, like the first thing I teach someone, okay, rule number one, everyone goes home safe. Now, that means if I got to say sorry, I'll say sorry. If I've had I've been at the door of a club and I'll go especially when it's a big group of guys, you don't want to let a group of 20 guys. And the thing is, it's not the group of guys that's the problem. The usual problem is the one guy that actually doesn't belong to the group. He's the one who will start trouble because he's there with a bunch of people. He's trying to impress the boys, but also he thinks he has backup, which more often than not, he doesn't. So he's the one who misbehaves and actually starts a fight. So I tell a group of guys, I'm sorry, you can't come in. They go they make a claim that they're gay and I'm being discriminatory. So I tell them, I can't be discriminatory. I'm gay as well. I'm not. But the thing is, I'll say anything I can to de-escalate, to avoid the fight. Right? So that if somebody insults me, the thing is, look, and I say it a million times, it's just words. The thing is, if someone I care about actually says something, it'll hurt my feelings. If some random stranger I have never met till now calls me names, I'm sorry, there's an ant in a park across the road whose opinion I value more. Right? So it's not going to upset me. It's not going to upset my inner equilibrium. The thing is, it's just a bunch of words. I've been called worse by people I actually like. So some random stranger calls me a name, I'm not that upset. The same thing, when you're young, you get in a lot of fights because you want to prove yourself. But in the security industry, your main thing is you've got to get over that, try to prove yourself bit. Once you've actually you've been punched in the face, you've been hit, you've survived, and you've been successful, you can actually talk to people with more confidence. That's the one thing I always recommend. If you're going into the security industry, you learn how to fight. I'm not saying learn, but just martial arts. Any even go to like one of those old crusty boxing gyms. Say go to a coach and go, listen, I want to learn how to handle myself in a street fight. Like I don't want to be a professional boxer, but I want to train. I'm really serious, and I just want to learn for self-defense or for whatever reason. And once you know how to fight, you can speak more confidently.
Absolutely.
Like I've walked up to gangs of bikers and had to tell them, sorry, like you can't come into the venue. You got to do that without your knees shaking. And yeah, like, and the thing is, like, I've noticed, like, as I said, I've trained in martial arts for a long time. I've met some, like, the thing is, some are arrogant because they've won the competition fights, but they don't actually know if this stuff's really going to work in the streets.
Absolutely.
And the predator, the person who's a predator type, who or has been lots of fights, they'll know your confidence is fake.
They'll feel
and
it
then
right
they'll either
away.
test you, like. Whereas when I walk up to guys that are bigger than me, and I go like, sorry Attila the Hun, sorry Adolf, but we're not letting you invade the nightclub, and say with enough confidence, they're like going, okay, he's serious and he can handle himself. So more often than not, sometimes, a lot of times they walk away. Sometimes, things do get physical. But there are some times where, like, you can't avoid the fight. The person came in with the intention for fighting. He's been planning on fighting. Sometimes she's been planning on fighting. They've had a bad day, whatever their bad day is, and they want to be the fun police. They want to come in. Sorry?
I said, you're absolutely correct, because, there's people out that are out there actually looking for a fight. They want to prove something, right? And that it occurs, and it unfortunately it happens.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where you've got to be able, like, especially the security industry, you can't spar the guy. You're not going to do a long round. Your job is to get it over and done with as quickly as possible. Number one, I work under the principle. The other guy is faster, stronger, a better fighter, better looking, knows how to fight better than me. I'm just not going to give you the opportunity to prove it. Right? I've got to end the fight as quickly as possible, because before I get hurt, before his friends join in, or before random strangers join in.
See, that's the problem.
You've always got
you always have the heroes. I call them the heroes that are going to come in there and save the day. And those are the dangerous parts, And when you get into stuff like that, you do not know who they are. They just came in. They're from another party. They're from another group. And they're going to become the hero all of a sudden. And they can turn something that was going to be under control, and they can turn it into something dangerous and deadly very quickly.
Yeah. Years ago, this would have been 12 years ago, we were walking out an islander. Like I'm 5'11-ish, reasonably, solid. This guy made me look tiny, but he was walking out calmly. There were 6 guards around, just to, show his strength. He's walking out calmly, and a little sniper slid in, slaps him on the back of the head. The guy thinks it's one of ours, turns around, starts fighting the guards. Sniper gets stuck in between. My boss of the time, slipped on the floor during the fight, so the sniper decides to jump on his head. So I hit him. I did a quick hit to this area here, like knocked him out completely. But you had to, like, it's quick. But now we're dealing with a big islander dude who's, like, huge. Like, and that could have been avoided if the guards at the back area, did the cleanup bit. Make sure you keep the back area safe, that the other person's not coming in. Thing is, the guy didn't know the islander. The guy didn't even have any bad interactions with us. He just decided to be a hero, as you said.
Yeah.
And then, like, everything went to hell. And, like, it took us an hour to then bring everything. Like, we had to arrest the islander. We arrested the hero. And then, like, here, keeping the guy in the handcuffs for an hour while we're waiting for the police to show up.
Absolutely. And what would you suggest if somebody says, you know what, I want to go the route of becoming a good bodyguard or becoming a good bouncer, going into security? What would you suggest somebody that wants to do that to do first?
Okay, number one, it depends on where you are. Like you have like Australia where I am, we've got licensing for everything, right? We have to do a course. You don't actually learn anything. And, I hate to say this. Unfortunately, you don't learn anything on the course. The course is just designed so that if you follow the principles of the course, the company who's hired you won't get sued. You get a few basics of the laws of the land pertaining to your industry, but you actually don't learn anything that actually is in the industry, right? So I recommend that hopefully the first place you're going to work with has a good security crew and you learn from them. That's especially for bouncing. And the thing is, each security, whether you're doing bouncing, nightclub, with nightclub work, or whether you're doing bodyguard work or high-end store, or even like a low-end store, each one has their own individual style of working. Like, for example, I could be a guard of bouncers in a nightclub, and I could be fantastic as a bodyguard, but I'd suck. I'd be no good in a shopping centre, right? And the thing is, it's not denigrating shopping centre guards. They're doing a whole bunch of different stuff that I don't do. Like, and I'm good with the violence bit. I'm also good with the talking bit, but like, you don't need me on a full shift at a shopping centre. Like, I probably would create more problems than I'd solve. So one is actually learn from the team. Pray to God that you go into a place that actually has a good team. The rougher the venue, you will generally have a good team. Here in Australia, unfortunately, a lot of the good old timers left the industry because the government is basically, at some point, the government decided to give free security courses to the unemployed, which may sound like a great idea, but these unemployed people were told, you know what, security is easy. You just stand there and do nothing and you get paid, which is not what security is.
Right.
And the courses go like, well, we're getting money from the government, so we'll just pump these guys out. Like, I get like, look, I don't care that, it's not a racial thing, but if you're coming into an industry where being able to communicate is necessary, you need to speak the language in the country you're in. Like,
Absolutely.
I'm not going to go do security in Africa. I don't speak the language. Part of my job is communication. If I can't communicate, I'm screwed. You send me a guard who doesn't speak English. I'm sorry, he's in the wrong job. I got a guard the other day who just came in to do my lunch cover. Like, I'm in a high-end store. We get lots of people trying to steal. And I go, okay, so I'm going to tell you what you have to do. He goes, no, I'm just here for your lunch cover. I go, yes, but during my lunch cover, you've got to work. He goes, no, I'm just going to stay until you come back. I said, the mannequin can do that. I actually need you to do what I'm doing while I'm not here. And so, like, we settled on the fact that I was just going to be outside, on my lunch break. And if there was any trouble, he'd call me. But I'm sorry, you get a whole bunch of those. We call them shirt fillers here. Right? Like in a nightclub, like, depends how many of your crew, you can basically run a decent, like a club that has about 5,000 patrons. If you have a crew of about, say, one or two good guards on the door. The doors are important, like very different than the inside. One or two good guards on the door, and you have a good crew of at least 3 or 4 inside. You can have 3 or 4 shirt fillers.
Sure.
You can't have a whole crew of shirt fillers. The door guards need to be able to read people. They also need to be able to communicate. You're like, when you knock someone back, you got to knock them back. You got to be diplomatic. You got to tell them to go to hell in such a way that they're looking forward to the trip. You can't just say no. And you also you can't give a reason why, because especially now, everything's discrimination. If you're saying I can't let you in because you're guys, then you're discriminating. right? Even though by law, especially where I am, the law states that you have to have a 50-50 ratio. And the thing is, you're never going to get a 50-50 ratio in the nightclubs. You're always going to have more guys. You know, and the guys that come in to pick up are going to be upset when they find that all the women in the venue came in with a guy. You know, so it creates its other little problems that we have to deal with. Sometimes, like, and that's the thing is, like, when you're on the door, you've got to be able to negotiate. You've got to be able to, you deal with the problem before it becomes a problem inside.
Absolutely.
So if you have a really good set of door guards, the venue will probably have less fights inside. If you don't have a real good set of door guards, the venue inside has non-stop fights.
You're absolutely correct, and that's what's lacking. And you just said it. You know, there's people that are here in Texas a little bit different. You still have to get a license. You have to get a license to the state. You have to take some course, or before it used to be a written course. Now I think there might be a video, or might be a couple of hours that you have to actually sit down in the course. Um, what happens is you have to go once you go inside, you have to actually apprentice under others that you have to learn from. Understand? You just don't go in there. I know
Exactly.
you don't. I already know it. No, because if you go in there with that attitude, you don't know diddly squat, and that's where the problems start. Hiring people that do not have the skills or have not apprenticed and do not have the time frame inside that will bring you into a dangerous situation. Very dangerous. You know,
Yeah, exactly.
there was an incident here about 2 months ago at a local club, which here in Texas now anybody can carry a gun. Before you needed a concealed handgun. Now, so now anybody can carry. A guy was filming the fight that occurred outside after hours, outside the bar, not inside the nightclub, right? He was filming with his phone. Some girl came over, don't film us fighting, slaps him. The guy was probably drunk. He slaps the girl, right? Which you shouldn't do morality wise, right? All of a sudden you have 15 heroes come in and start popping the guy around.
Yeah.
So the girl and everybody else, they were just beating the shit out of him. Excuse my language. And then, so the guy runs out of there scared, runs down the hallway, and all of a sudden he sees three guys chasing him. Well, he turns around and pulls out a gun and pops them three dead.
Yeah, exactly.
So now they want to say, well, he murdered them, he did this, he did that. When you look at the film, and when you look at the video, he was in the right in self-defense wise. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Well, look, from what you've just told me, and I don't know anything about the case. So the people attacking had the ability, the intent, the opportunity. He was in jeopardy, and by running away, he tried preclusion. He's basically covered all the steps that actually, would say self-defense. And I'm not a legal expert, but that's how, like, we do it here. Like, we don't have, like, I know some of your states, like Florida, has castle doctrine, which we don't have. We actually have to do preclusion here, which also creates its own little problems. But yeah, from what I hear, that there's no way you could call that murder. That would be self-defense.
So so now it's going to trial, and I think they got him for homicide, and he killed his cousin or his friend or something to that effect. Inside the shooting, he was a third guy that was running after him or something like that. The guy's already, mentally shot, and I think they're going after him for murder. But if you really look at the whole thing, it's like you say, all those five
Yeah,
accounts. Yeah, I mean, he's out really. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a legal expert, but what I'm seeing right there, that to me, they were beating the crap out of him. He escapes,
exactly.
and three guys are running after him, and he turns around and shoots them. Now they went off and they said, well, it was an illegal gun and did this.
Yeah, well, the thing is, like,
I don't
the
know.
fact that it's illegal. Look, I know, like, you go to court, you got to have clean hands. The fact that it was an illegal gun is one set of crime, but that doesn't, like, he didn't have the intent to go in, and I'm like, we're not legal experts. He didn't have the intent to go in to kill someone. So you got that. So you might have it as manslaughter, but the fact is he is being attacked. He is trying to leave the scene. That, as we both said, we're not legal experts, but from, our experience, we'd not call that murder.
Yep.
That's a lot of times, like, that's the other thing is, like, when people say, I always tell people, never say you did self-defense. By saying you did self-defense, you admitted you did something. You don't have to prove you did the right thing. I always, I tell the police, and the thing is, this is the fact is, we're in 2022. There are cameras everywhere. There's street cameras, there's cameras on people's phones. So one, lying is pointless, right? For the last, I think for the last 20 years, every single physical removal I've been in have been under cameras. So when I talk to the police, and the thing is, I always can tell people, you will be speaking to the police, right? You've got to tell them what you did. I don't never say I did self-defense. I tell them exactly what I did. I'll let the police do his job of prove whether I did the wrong thing, right? So far, I've been handcuffed a lot, and the police really hate it when I tell them my safe word is pineapple because I'm annoying. But the thing is, I know it doesn't matter that I'm security. Something's happening. Like, sometimes the police, and the thing is, look, I'm not against the police. They have their job to do. And the fact is, like, people have this, they've watched too many movies. Like, one of the reasons I'm not a big fan of ground fighting for a real life situation. Don't get me wrong. I'm a big believer in learning ground fighting, but the reality is, and I've been pepper sprayed in a situation, the police don't know who the bad guy is. They get out of their squad car, they're expecting danger, right? And they rock up and they see someone who looks like me. And let's face it, I'm not the prettiest man in the world, and I give off thug vibes. And I'm in a fight with someone, and I'm holding someone down. They don't know whether I'm the good guy or the bad guy.
Absolutely.
And the first thing they're going to do is pepper spray me. Was in an incident, actually wasn't even the venue I was working. I was the senior guard in an area which had, I was working at an old school pub. There was a nightclub just around the corner, another nightclub up the road. And I get one of our regulars come running into the place I'm working, going, the club, which also had the same security company, down the road, had a massive brawl. He goes, you got to go help. So I run up the stairs, and I see one of the guards that I used to work with. The other thing was, he was a short guy, probably 4'8". But every time you put someone in a hold, he always, he didn't know how to do joint locks. He did power holds, where, like, you had to do your whole body weight thing, which is, it's very tiring and not a good idea. But he's holding this guy and didn't notice the guy pulling a knife. So then I went to grab the knife hand, and I thought, like, we're both going to hold him, except the schmuck who was holding him originally lets him go to run off to deal with someone else. Mind you, it's an 80-man brawl. We have enough trouble. In an 80-man brawl, you really shouldn't be holding anyone. There's too much going on. The only reason I'm holding him, he's holding a knife. When the police arrived, I'm actually trying to get the police's attention, which I did. And the first thing, then three of the friends of the guy with the knife, like, they're hitting me while I'm holding the guy with the knife. And then the police come and pepper spray me, just me, like, with a big power pack. So I look like a red Smurf, like, basically the whole foam face, like, look like. And then they step back, and these three guys kept hitting me. It was only when my security crew recognized me that they came in. And the thing is, I don't blame the cop. It's a stressful situation. You walk in, you don't know what's going on. One of the things, like, whenever someone, says hold them down, like, look, I'm not a big fan. You get positional asphyxia. Like, seriously, working in the security industry, it's almost like you need to get a law degree, a psychologist degree, a medical degree, like, learn how to fight. Seriously, you're going to be a cultured thug. You know, right? Like if you put someone like I always tell someone who's a big ground fighter, I go, listen, this is what you do next time you're in training. Get someone into whatever your hold is, hold them down. Get someone to monitor their breathing. This is like, get someone to monitor their breathing, make sure they're safe for the whole training exercise. Get someone to do a random timer, right? And then get some of the other students to just hit you with rubber tools and just like yell at you, right? You will find that it's no longer as fun as you thought it was. And the thing is, you're not waiting for the police as long as, like, I think the average police response time is between 15 minutes and 3 days in my neck of the woods.
Here it's about, depends, maybe between 5 minutes to about half an hour. But the police,
my neck of the.
but the police over here would come out and they will aggravate the situation. You need to. How can I put it? And I've seen it what they've done, and I make fun of them because I know a lot of them, you know, and I joke around with them, but they need some training and some of these classes that, and you said it, some of these courses that they're teaching law enforcement and everybody else, they're just teaching it because somebody got paid some stipend to make up some kind of course out there somewhere or another for everybody to come out because, you know, they're doing it probably because, you know, they funneled money to this company that needed to make all these courses. And all of a sudden you have all these courses that really do not teach you diddly squat of what reality is. People need to start doing apprenticeships. And if we have vocations like this that you learn and you pass on the craft, you have to have an apprenticeship. And if you don't have it,
exactly.
I'm sorry. And that's what's happened with the martial arts.
Yeah. Well, see, here we have to call the police because the law states that the only time I can arrest someone without involving the police is for trespass. So if I arrest someone for anything but trespass, I have to, the wording of the law is I have to get a bail justice, which we don't have anymore. And that's just someone who can give the person bail if the magistrate is around. You've got to take him to the magistrate or hand him over to the police. Right now, there was an incident at one of the casinos here, biggest casino we have. Big incident. Basically, what happened was they were removing an intoxicated male. He'd already been kicked out an hour earlier. Now, once you've been kicked out of a place for being intoxicated, you're not legally allowed back in for 24 hours. Okay, so 1 hour later, he's got it in. He's being walked out. He's walking out calmly. And then he runs into a male and female friend who are also intoxicated. And then they start arguing. So the guards start removing them as well. Now, in the removal, the female then turns around and hits a guard. He's grabbed her, taken her to the ground. Her husband then turns around and hits a guard, so he gets grabbed. The other guy, who was about 6'4", vastly overweight, turns around, attacks the other guard, who's 4 foot, I think 4'8". Okay. During the incident, the big guy, the first guy, has a heart attack. It now becomes a medical emergency. So the guards have let the other people off. They've not contacted the police. They've contacted an ambulance because that's the right thing to do. They performed CPR. Now, the guy died, I think, 2 days later of a heart attack. Right. So the first guard was charged with murder. The other guards were also charged with murder. That way they couldn't be witnesses on his behalf. Right. Now, because they didn't call the police for the woman assaulting the guard, that part of the incident actually doesn't go to court. But their arrest of the woman does. So they actually got charged with false arrest. So if, for example, if I arrest someone for any by arrest, that means I stop them from leaving. Don't even have to get physical with them. All I've got to do is like stand in front of the only exit, and they feel they can't leave. That's considered an arrest here. So if I arrest someone and I don't contact the police, and 6 months down the track, they feel that they were falsely arrested, I can actually be charged for false imprisonment and false arrest. Whatever crime they committed that I arrested them for, because I didn't contact the police, is actually not allowed in court.
Wow.
So whatever incident it is, unless it's trespass, like if I ask you to leave and then I have to physically remove you, even if I put handcuffs, as long as that was just for trespass. If you hit me during the removal, it now becomes an assault. I've got to call the cops. And so, yeah, so the police have to come. And as I said, if the police arrive in the middle of an incident, they don't know who the bad, even once I've got someone handcuffed, they don't know who the bad guy is. I might be doing it because I'm on a power trip. So like, I don't blame the police. They're coming into a hostile environment. Sorry?
You're correct. They come out there and they're faced with it every day, and more than others, and they have to deal with it, and it changes the dynamics of everything.
Yeah. Look, same as with security guards, and I say that all the time. It's and I don't like using the phrase, but most bouncers that work in violent clubs have a lot in common with Vietnam vets. Because the Vietnam vet in Vietnam didn't know who the bad guy was. Yeah, there was like the time that like they're on in the field where they knew exactly the enemy was in an opposing uniform, but like you'd be like the person that was making you coffee or you whatever turns out to be working for the other team and puts a bomb in the place.
Sure.
Bouncers are kind of the same situation. The thing is, like, we don't go home at the end of the war because we go back into the clubs. Like I did 7 nights a week at one point. I once did 400. Never do this. This is I did 79 days in a row. I was so cranky by the end of it. Right? But we were working 7 nights a week. I don't recommend that. You need the break. But yeah, that's the thing is like the person who was friendly to you 5 minutes ago can turn on you. And the fact is we're keeping everybody in the club safe. That's our job. We're keeping the employees safe. We're keeping the customers safe. We're trying to make sure that the club maintains its liquor license. And we don't know who the actual enemy is.
Absolutely. And
because it could be anyone.
And a lot of people do not understand that. And a lot of people, once they start drinking, liquid courage sets in and everybody becomes very, very courageous. And some people that become very, very aggressive. And once they start with that, you don't know who's going to be the one that's going to attack what or where it's going to fly from. People say, no, It always happens with men. No, more so with women as you're seeing it now. It happens with both sexes. They all of them drink too much and go forward.
It's just different violence. See, okay, men do more of their own violence. Like a man will come and hit you. Now, women will do their own violence. See, women will also randomly hit, like, for example, because they think they can get away with it. But they also do violence by proxy. Like they get the white knight or, I call them Captain Save-A-Hose.
Yeah.
There'll be some guy, he wants to impress the girl, and she'll tell him that you did something or you touched her inappropriately and you never did. And this schmuck will come and try to hit you or whatever because he's trying to impress the girl. And the thing is, the girl's not really impressed. She doesn't even like you because let's face it, if someone really likes you, they're not going to put you in a situation where you're going to get hurt or potentially get hurt.
Absolutely. You're absolutely correct. And, and you see it.
We're
working in those, and when you work in those environments, when you've gone through those, I did it when I was younger, and you see that, and you see women. You just brought back a lot of memories. You see, women are the ones that instigate the fight for somebody else, and somebody else is the one that's going to go inside. Yeah. But
Yeah,
they'll
and
hit you as well. But they'll hit you as well.
yeah. Like I got, this is the other thing, is never buy an expensive suit. I made the mistake of buying a big guy. Like, it was hard to find suits, and I bought an expensive suit. I got stabbed 1 hour into like my first shift wearing the expensive suit. And it was a woman. And do you know why she stabbed me? Because she'd gone to the bathroom and she'd left an empty glass on the bar and someone had moved it. So she started getting violent. Then she went to attack a female staff member, and I went to intervene. She broke a bottle and stabbed me repeatedly with the bottle. I was more upset about the suit than being stabbed. But yeah, and the thing is, look, violence, that's the thing is, none of the violence that I have seen has ever been about a really important reason. It's always been, the reasons have been so stupid that you're looking at the guy and you're thinking, were you dropped as a baby? Like, no, what the hell's wrong with you? Was in a club. This guy glassed another guy. We've arrested him. We got him back. We've got him in the corridors back house waiting for the police. And like, so I'm talking to him. So like, he goes, oh, you don't understand. He goes like, I dated her 3 years ago and I broke up with her and I saw her with another guy. And I'm like, going, hang on. You broke up with her 3 years ago. Not like she broke your little heart and you were jealous because, because your idea to break it. He goes like, yeah. I'm like, you're an idiot. Like, you've, number one, disfigured some poor guy. Number two, you're going to jail.
Absolutely.
And he's like going, oh, but like, he was trying to like make it as if like, he had a legitimate reason. And like, there is so many, like, if I ever write a book about it and I was there, I don't believe half of the stuff I see. Like half of the conversations, you're like going like, what? And that's a reality of the industry.
But you have to love it because you've been doing it for such a long time.
It just pays the bill. That's the reality. Like, come on, like I can't go do sales. Can you imagine me buy this handbag or else? It's like, and the thing is, like, the thing with the security stuff, I'm just really good at it. Like, not to give tickets to myself. The fact is, I give 110%. I'm really good at what I do. And the only reason I'm still in the industry is it pays my bills. Like, if I had another job that, I was good at that paid my bills, I'd be doing that instead. It's like I went from working in nightclubs and now I work in a high-end store. Surprisingly, I get paid more to protect handbags. I think I've been there for 3 years, and I think I've done, counting this weekend, probably 5 physical removals in the last 3 years, right? I was doing 20 per night in the nightclubs. And I've worked in some rough nightclubs. I worked in one nightclub where it was 80 fights a night. And the thing is, I don't say that to things. If we have a fight, we failed at some point.
Easy. You're absolutely correct. And it's good. It's good for folks who listen to the experience that you had, the stories, because what it does, it hopefully makes them realize that apart from it's hard work, it's dangerous work, but you also have to learn to be in there. Don't expect to get your course out of the way and you be the hero all of a sudden. You can't. You have to understand why you're there, what you're doing, for you to progress within it.
Look, I have people, and it's really hilarious when like someone who's just come from the course will go like, listen, like we know everything we do. I've been doing this since I was 18. I'm 50. I'm still learning. I don't know all there is to the security. And I just respond with like, fuck off. I've got scars that are older than you. Yeah. Right. That's the thing. Like, we've got to be part psychologist, motivational speaker. You've got to know, if, like, seriously, you've got to know, first aid. You've got to be able to stay calm. Like, I had to hold the poor guy's brains in when the thing is, he was on a walk. He wasn't even in one of our venues. He was on a walk on a Friday night with his girlfriend on like a riverfront area, 30 feet away from the venue, when a group of guys, for whatever reason, decided to jump him and kick the crap out of him. So my team actually went and broke up the fight. So here we are, and I'm trying to keep the poor guy's brains in while we're waiting for an ambulance. That's part and parcel of stuff that you have to do. You got to, at the end of the day, sometimes you come home covered in someone's blood, your blood. You've got to do first aid, and then you got the real weird stuff that you're not expecting. Dealing with we had a period where people were this is going to sound crazy. They thought they were vampires, right? So you ended up dealing with people with fangs, and you're like going, like, if I tell anyone this, no one's going to believe this story. And it's really funny, but if you talk to bouncers, like, it was roughly about up to 10 years ago, you talk to bouncers in Melbourne from 10 years past, and all of them will have a vampire story. Last 10 years, luckily, we don't. But, like, you have your other weirdness, like it is really funny. Okay, the blood and the violence is not the one that really hits you. It's that really out of context. I had an incident about 4 years ago. This woman tried to come into the nightclub at midnight carrying a baby. And she looked like a Swedish backpacker. Like, if you've ever seen Love Actually, like, go to the right to the end of the movie where Liam Neeson meets the mother of the other kid, and it's some famous model. Looked like her. She's holding a baby. She's trying to get into a nightclub at midnight. But something looked off. So I followed her downstairs. I've called the guys that run the cameras in the casino. They've called the police. They sent down paramedics. I got to the bottom of the escalator. I run into one of the local drug dealers who's banned for the nightclubs because he's a drug dealer. But he goes, I've called the police because I've been following this woman with the baby. Something's wrong with the baby. So here you got a bouncer and a drug dealer following a woman with a baby at midnight. So we stopped her. We got paramedics to look at the baby, who then start doing, resuscitation. Turns out she stole the baby 24 hours earlier. Right. Now, that sticks with you way more than when I got stabbed or when I was set on fire. Like, not that any of those were good situations, but those little things kind of stick you more. It's like I spoke to traffic police and police, like, they go, like, it's not like a criminal issue is not what sticks with them. What sticks with them, like, for example, is when they come up to a car accident and there's a baby's shoe on the ground.
Yeah.
That really plays with your head. And that's the thing, is, like, part of my job in security is, like, like, we can't go to a normal therapist. Like, if we go to a therapist, they don't actually understand what a guard deals with. And, like, when you explain it, they think you're either making shit up or actually have no answer to it.
And and we all have stories of those, and it always happens. And when you try to tell them, people are looking at you like, "Are you for real, or are you making this shit up?" And that's what happens.
Exactly.
Correctly, and you're like, "No, it happened for real," and it happens when you're dealing with a lot of people, and people are coming in and going. A lot of weird stuff happens all of a sudden, and people think it's that it doesn't, but it does. There's a lot of people out there that are just nuts, and
exactly.
Somewhere or another, they're driven like magnets to bars and nightclubs and what have you. And once you go into that field, you're gonna see some weirdness coming up, and it's gonna. Sometimes you just have to laugh through it, but in other parts,
and look, some of the things, like, here, like, I can tell you what days you're going to get more nuts. It's generally on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and full moons, or humid days. If it's a really humid day, you usually have more violence. And the thing is, people go like, but why is the Tuesday? Well, Tuesday is the day mental asylums let someone out. Thursday's the day.
We don't have them anymore here.
So
they stopped.
We still have them. We don't call them that anymore.
No. Here
they're called mental health clinics.
No, they call them. All they do is they just give them a couple of things that look like Skittles and Skittles, and they're popping different colors every other hour, and sometimes they miss one and they kind of fly off the coop.
Yeah.
But and that's what happens around here. You just start seeing this person. They start telling you that we don't talk because the walls are being recorded, and you're like, yeah. And you're like, and who are you for you to be of that importance? You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. They're kind of easy to spot. Someone walks in with no shoelaces and no belt. They've just been let out of the asylum, because the first thing they do is take your shoelaces and your belt off you so you don't hang yourself, right? So generally, like Tuesdays, you start seeing a whole bunch of people with no shoelaces, no belt. You're like, okay, crazies are in, right? And then Thursdays, you generally get it because that's when their medication, like people on long-term medication, I don't know what it is, but Thursday seems to be the day that medication kind of like runs out, or like, I don't, maybe it's a dosage thing, but that seems to be the thing. And full moons, I didn't believe it till you work in the industry, and then you start seeing, and the thing is, it's full moon and the week after a full moon. Because like sometimes the crazy, the crazies lock themselves away because they go to full moon, so I want to lock myself away. The only thing is they go out the next week.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct.
So it's, and the thing is, like, you don't learn any of this in the course, and people don't believe you when you tell them. It's same as like I've had a security manager in one of the places that I worked. It was a big establishment, and there'd been a murder, and two guards were actually the ones who found the bodies, and they tried to get someone to do psychological counselling for them, but there was no one who actually understood. So I get a security manager goes, Paolo, do you mind if I send someone to talk to you? And I'm going like, well, what's the problem? He goes, well, this is what's happened. But like, I just thought like you've seen enough of it that you can actually be more understanding, So like, you got like, that's the thing is in the security industry, you got to be like part therapist. Like you, sometimes like the guy will, whoever the problem is, like will be, you just need to talk to them. And like, their issue is not going to be solved by having a drink. Their issue is really to go home and like do something else, Like I always tell people like, sometimes you just got to get back into the physical. Like if you're in the headspace all the time because of emotional and look, I'm not saying you shouldn't feel emotional. This is not like, man, got to be tough routine. The fact is this, if you get stuck in the headspace because of the emotional thing and you keep going over it like Groundhog Day, it's not going to improve. Sometimes you really do have to just like physically go out, do some physical stuff that will actually get you out of your headspace.
You're
live in the now.
You're absolutely correct.
You'll be amazed. Like it's not magic, but you'd be amazed how much it like will improve, your situation. Look, if you feel something emotional, you're supposed to. Your parent passes away, a relative is sick or whatever. We're human beings. We're supposed to feel the emotion. It's where some people allow themselves to drown in it. Like when my mum passed away, like I didn't have the option of like, yes, I was emotional, I had to be, but I didn't have the option to break down. Stuff had to be done. My dad had to be looked after. Things had to be organized. Same thing when my dad passed away. Same thing. You just like, it's not about getting like, being like stoic. I don't feel emotions. We're humans, we're emotions, but sometimes you've got to go like, okay, I've got to deal with it because there are people counting on me, you know.
Absolutely.
And like, you know, but like, you know, you can't be harsh. Like, you know, old school method was like, you know, like my old man was like very famous for like put some ice on it and walk it off. Like, you know, unless like, you know, even if you were dying, unless like you were like half past dead, like there was work to be done, you know.
No,
I'm not that bad. Like,
you're correct. You're correct. You know,
yeah,
things have changed, and the security, especially in bouncing and in even executive protection, you better have your mindset straight, your head on right, because if you
yeah,
don't, it's gone. You know, not only that, you can get
yeah,
yourself killed, and you can get other people killed, and you have to have.
exactly. Look,
Go ahead.
executive protection, that's a complete other field altogether. There you need local knowledge. Like, you know, you've got to make a plan. Like, depends on the client you have. Like, you know, where's your client going today? How big is the team you're working with? You know, what is your backup plan? And the thing is, like, as a bodyguard, like, it's not the movies. As a bodyguard, your job is not to engage the threat. Your job is to get your client to safety. And then you have to have a backup plan. Like, where do we meet up? Like your job, like for example, my job, you know, might be that I've got to stop the attacker while my client gets to safety. I then have to still go to my client. So we have a backup plan of what safe areas is there to go to. You know, if you're doing a day trip somewhere, you know, you've got to know the area. Like I have people, you know, I have celebrities come into the store with their bodyguards who've not been trained properly. I don't care who your celebrity is. If you want them to be treated properly, call up, make an appointment. Like, even if it's like, look, we don't know what time you're coming, call up, you make an appointment, and we'll free up the space knowing such and such is coming. Like, we know it's not going to be precisely on time like we expect from other customers, because stuff happens, fans get in the way, whatever. But you make an appointment. Like when I'm bodyguarding someone, I call up in advance almost everywhere that I'm going.
Absolutely,
Make sure that the staff.
you have to set it off. You have to have plans, and you have to be trained with that, and you have to learn from that. You have to be, and it just goes back to you have to apprentice for these vocations.
Exactly.
And it has to happen. And people are not doing that anymore. Everybody wants their 20 minutes. They want their 20-minute workout. You know, they want the 20-minute abs, the 20-minute abs, the 20-minute biceps, the 20-minute martial arts black belt, the 20-minute security course.
Yeah.
There's nothing called 20 minutes. It doesn't happen.
Yeah, exactly. Look, I'm getting back into shape. And the thing is, like, when I injured my spine in 2012, I was out of commission. I was on crutches for nearly 2 years. Like, I'm Italian. Like, I ate because I wasn't happy. I was, you know, like, the thing is, you're not mobile. Like, I gained, like, probably over 100 kilos. Like, I was, you know, like, that's the thing is, you know, the thing is, I really didn't actually notice when I got back on my feet. Like, I was still moving bad because I had a spinal injury. Excuse me. But then, like, I started losing weight, got to, you know, getting back into shape. But that's the thing. Like, it's taken me over four years to lose 100 kilos.
Absolutely,
right?
it's hard work. And
like, it's not like if you got 30 kilos to lose, you got to calculate. That's got to be at least, you know, let's say even if you lose a kilo a week, that's still 30 weeks. And then you got to, like, you know, you got to have some bad weeks, right?
Absolutely,
like,
absolutely.
So when someone says like 12 weeks to get, like, I'm sorry, like, yeah, if you're in reasonable shape, 12 weeks is doable. If you're like, if you got an extra 20 kilos or 30 pounds or whatever, I'm sorry, you got to, you know, do the maths. Like, you didn't become fat overnight. You're not going to get slim overnight.
Absolutely. You're absolutely correct on that. You know, what I tell people is if you want to train, you want to be better, start training and start cross training. There's going to be a point in time that you're going to have to start cross training and go with good people. You know, that's what
exactly.
I tell them. Go with good people. But, you know, Paolo, it's been great talking to you. It's been great listening to what you say and all your advice, because people out there are looking for this type of work. There's people out there that need it. There are people out there that are built for it. And the best way is let's get those courses out and start doing an
Yeah,
apprenticeship.
exactly.
Involved with
Look,
somebody.
as I said, I recommend be well read. Read on multiple subjects. Like it's not all about just the violence. There are good books on handling yourself in that sort of situation. I recommend anything written by Rory Miller, Mark McYoung. Recommend getting into shape. I recommend getting any of the books by Johnny Payne. Like he, in one of his articles he writes, which is the smart thing. Like it's not all about fighting. At the end of the day, your physical fitness is, if you're going to give someone's on down, your dad's had a heart attack and you need to perform CPR, you want to be able to do the chest pumps for as long as possible. If you're not fit, you're not going to be able to do that. If someone's hurt, you want to be able to carry them to safety. If there's a flood, you want to be able to pull them to safety. That's where the physical, that's for me is what functionality is.
Absolutely.
Like the fitness should look, we all want to be good, look good. That's a given. But you want to train, it's got to be functional. In the security world, you want to be, as you said, you need to apprentice with someone who knows their stuff. You also got to read stuff from, violence experts, as I said, Mark McYoung, Rory Miller. It's, the sports fighting is one thing which doesn't cross over.
It doesn't cross over.
And as you said, it's the apprenticeship, and just keep learning. In the security industry, if you run into someone who knows their stuff, pay attention. Also pay attention like how many scars they have. If the person's a fighter, he doesn't look at the figures like, and I know it sounds bad, but if he's got his, fight and he doesn't have any scars, I'm sorry, don't listen to him. He hasn't been in a fight. Right? And it's like I'm a big, I'm not a fan of knife disarms. Like you can disarm a knife if it's a knife threat. The guy's holding the knife, saying, do this or I'll stab you. He might not want to stab you. A real knife attack, he's actually stabbing, and it's hard to defend against. But like, let's say you do disarm him, right? What do you do? Like you've disarmed him. Now by law, you're holding his knife. You've kind of legally screwed yourself because like you stabbed him, you're armed and he's not, because the law doesn't see the definition he was trying to kill you in the first place. Yep. So I'm a big believer, grab the arm and take the guy down and take him out. The other thing is, if someone tells you their system that they're not going to get stabbed, you're not going to get cut. Like I asked one guy, I'm sorry, like if a guy's got a 1-inch blade in his hand and you're saying you can fight him without getting cut, so when you fight empty-handed, he's not going to land the blow. And the guy goes, no, of course he can land the blow. How is he not going to land the blow with an extra 2 inches of steel in his hand? It's just a bit of logic. There's too many people who lie to make themselves, sound good. Just look at the confidence of how the person speaks, look at the confidence how they walk, look at their interaction. And as I said, the security, the skills you need in security is such a big thing that it crosses over into other parts of your life.
Absolutely.
And the fighting part's only one of the small part.
Absolutely. And I want to thank you again for the nice talk and the nice explanations, because like I said, people need to hear this, and who better than you to tell them?
Thank you. You're welcome.
And hopefully one day we can get down there, and you always have a home when you come up here in Texas. And one day we'll get.
You've got a place you could stay if you come down. Yeah. And I'm looking forward to coming up to Texas. I've got lots of friends there.
Absolutely. You stay safe, be safe, and folks out there, just be peaceful. That's what it's all about now.
Exactly.
And keep moving forward.
Life is way better without the fights.
Absolutely. All right. Until next time, much peace.
Thanks, brother. It was my pleasure.
It's my pleasure. Be safe.
You too.
Today, in America, more than 5.5 million men, women, and children train in a martial art regularly. Buitron Academy has been serving Laredo for over 30 years now. Our adult classes are geared for producing the best in you, teaching you street-ready techniques. With the arts of Savate and Kinpo, you'll learn the traditions of these sciences of combat as passed down professor to student.
Hello, my name is Jaime Garcia. I started Savate when I was 17 or 18. I'd like to say it was because I was in search of knowledge, but truth be told, I joined Selfdefense because I got my ass kicked in a bar. My mouth was writing checks, my ass couldn't cash, so I figured I should learn how to fight. I was looking through the paper, trying to find someone that I could really learn something from, and I came across Buitron's school. Even though it was on the other side of town for me, I wanted to go someplace where I wasn't going to be wasting my time. So I came by, he was nice enough to take me on as a student, and I started learning. I went all the way up until I think it was white glove, pretty consistently. As a matter of fact, I think I even failed one glove because one year I wasn't prepared enough. I believe it was my green glove. So I had to take my green glove twice, but definitely didn't stop me from coming back because that was definitely my fault. But I kept coming back year after year, and I loved it. I had to stop when I was about 25, 26. I had to go to school, I had to go off to college, but I never forgot what I learned here, and I promised myself I would always come back. I just had to get some life stuff done. So I went to school. So that definitely not only gave me the confidence to do so many other things in my life, but it also got me out of a lot of trouble that I admittedly got myself into. But definitely one of the most important things I ever learned in my life was how to fight. I finally came back, even though I live in Austin, which is a good 3.5 hours away. I still make the time to come every month to come and learn because it's one of the best decisions I ever made in my life, one of the best things I ever did. And I believe it gives a person something that the society is very much missing these days, which is a discipline and a drive to go forward, drive to keep doing what you're doing. And I believe in it so much, I'm just waiting for my kids to get old enough to hopefully start doing it themselves. And yeah, best thing I ever did in my life, and I wouldn't change it.
Come train at the best kept secret of Laredo. Give us a call for your free evaluation at 956-401-4868 or check out our website at savate.biz. Follow us on YouTube and Facebook.